Hi, True Crime Grapevine friends. Well, I'm Patty Lee, the dyslexic detective. As you can probably tell by my little greeting there, I got a little trippy in my words. If you've been following our channel, I don't know why it's our channel. If you've been following my channel, the True Crime Grapevine, you might know that we had a little issue with our air conditioning, and things got a little crazy. We were lucky enough to have people be able to get here and replace the system with the new system, and but it took a couple days, and of course with people around it's difficult to tape. Anyway, so I'm a little bit behind on when I usually would tape and upload. So if you're new here, hi. This channel is for people who are interested in all the current true crime, I was going to say narratives. I mean, they are narratives about actual crimes that are taking place now, that everybody on the interwebs are talking about. But you just don't have time to watch every single YouTube channel, read every single magazine article, look up every different update on what's been in the news in the past. So if you come here, you can sit right down here, and like any good grapevine, I'm just gonna pass on to you what I've heard. So you can get it all in one sitting if you watch our full episodes that are going to be uploaded after the weekend. And during the week, we will upload the different cases as separate cases. So if you only want to listen to half an hour or 15 minutes sometimes, or 10 minutes, depending on how much of an update there is, you can listen that way. So it's up to you. So if you would subscribe, it's free. Helps our channel grow. We're a teeny tiny channel that's only been going since February of this year. That would be great. Also, if you could give it a thumbs up, that would also help a lot as well. And leave me any comments if you have any ideas about what I'm talking about, if you have other alternative theories, if you think I've misunderstood something or gotten some bad juice on the grapevine. Please go ahead and leave that in the comments. Also, since it's the grapevine, after the first couple episodes, I started to pair every case with a drink. Just, I don't know, to make it fun. It's hilarious because I'm not really a drinker. So by the 6th or 8th case, I may or may not be, as Erica Jane would say on this season of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, lit, honey. So, that's what the channel's about. I am a educational psychologist, mother of 3, ex-kindergarten teacher who is staying home and sort of looking after my kids and my parents during the pandemic. And I've always loved true crime. And with my background in educational psychology, I feel like I understand a little bit about people's motivations and what might be how they're problem solving or thinking or their reasoning, even if it's not healthy reasoning or developmentally appropriate reasoning. I am not a criminal psychologist, so just FYI, this channel is for entertainment purposes only, or educational. If you're interested, it's not really entertainment in that sense, but just to be clear, I am not in law enforcement. I am not a lawyer. And this is just, if you're interested in true crime and you don't have all the time, come here and I'll tell you what's on the interwebs and what the grapevine is saying. I also try to give you, my main screen sources. So if you want to go get more information on your own, which I highly always recommend if you do have the time, I'll try to provide where I got my information, and that also helps you think critically and seek to disconfirm if what I am laying down, if you're picking it up or if you're not. It's all good. Let me know how you're thinking and how you got it wrong, or how I got it wrong. And maybe, who knows, we can figure things out. Anyways, all right, so this is our 24th episode. I have 6 flights. We have my introduction, and we're going to be talking about the Dylan Rounds case during the introduction, and sort of have a little moment to celebrate his birthday that happened this week. This is covering the week of about from July 26th, last Tuesday, through today, which is early Friday, August 4th. So that's the time period in which I'm sort of recapping. So yes, we're going to have the introduction, the Dylan Rounds case. This is the introduction, and at the end I'll talk about Dylan's case. We'll have then I'll talk about, we have a couple missing women's cases. That's our first major flight with the case of Erica Johnson, an update on the Christe Powell case, and an update on the Shana Di Mambro case out of Spring Branch, Texas. And then we'll have their second flight. I call it Love Kills. We have the Christe Chen, the honeymoon homicide update. We have what I'm calling, because it was the signature podcast, Over My Dead Body, the Dan Markle murder. We have an update on sentencing of one of the conspirators, and an update on our love triangle murder out of Austin, Texas, and the triangle is Kaitlin Armstron, Colin Strickland, and unfortunately the innocent victim in all of it, Mo Wilson. That is our second flight. Our third flight is going to be two cases of, unfortunately, shooters. We're going to have an update on the Ethan Crumbley, his parents. That was the Oxford High School shooter, and his parents have been charged as well, which is unusual. We're going to talk about that, and what there was a very interesting filing, just I believe either today or yesterday. And then we're going to talk about the 4th of July, Highland Park, Illinois. Alleged perpetrator Robert Cremio III, and he had his pleading. So the fourth flight is just court updates. We've got cases that are now in the adjudication process of going to court. We have an update on the Cloak Mom Valo Daybell case. We have a update on Cassie Carley's, well, sort of an update on what's happening in court with the alleged unliving person, Marcus Spenvalo. We have an update on Letitia Stout, and an update on the Naomi Arian suspect, the alleged unaliver of Naomi Arian. Again, you can see that dyslexic. That's a language processing issue. Just a little developmental difference. That language processing, the speaking, and when words get jammed up, one of the issues you will see with my dyslexic detective. Dyslexic, though, as I always remind you guys at the beginning of these things, dyslexic people tend to also have seen a different way of seeing. Like, they can see a bigger picture, they can fill in missing pieces sometimes, see things in an alternative way. So great problem solvers, which I think is helpful in talking about true crime. And then, okay, so that was our court update section, our flight, and then we're gonna be talking about the celebrity case, the Depp Heard case, the case that will never die. We have a few updates and legacy media issues that you may have noticed that we could discuss. So that is our intro. We are going to end our introduction with a case. I always drink this red sangria by the Round Barn. It's fun and fruity, sparkling wine beverage. I love it. I'm going to be drinking it just out of a jelly jar. Why? Because if you've been listening to Dylan's mom, Candace Clooney, she keeps describing both their families and Dylan. They're farmers, and if you know farmers, they don't stand on like ceremony of, oh, we're going to oh no, my alpaca got some red wine on it. I'm sorry, Parvati. I can't say that word. You know, the opera singer. I was naming my little Johnny Depp, if you haven't seen it. My alpaca. I think I'll just have to call him Al. All right. Now he's got a little wine stain, but this is the True Crime Grapevine. So, if you can find, you can order it directly from the Round Barn. They're out of Michigan. This is to celebrate Dylan Round's 20th birthday, wherever he may be. His mom has also been handing out seed packets of, I don't know if you can see, I have some of my sunflowers here, and we've got a sunflower here in the vase. I don't know if you can see it. These are in honor of Dylan, to celebrate Dylan's life, and hopefully to celebrate him being found soon. So, if you don't know, very good. Dylan Rounds is a now 20-year-old as of August 1st. A 20-year-old young man. He's about 5, is he 5'10", 5'11"? He's got brown eyes, brown hair. He is he's a very nice kid who is focused on farming. He doesn't really like party, go out. He's like, has always wanted just to farm, according to his mom, Candace. And I completely believe her. It seems as if Dylan has run into some sort of foul play when he was working out on his farm in near Lucien, Utah, which is way up in the corner of Utah, right next to where it is. He was 30 miles from Nevada, and his parents were 70 miles away, I believe, south in Idaho. So he did often go home, but he did know people in the area that he could. He was living he was trying to get this land tilled. He was finally getting a crop in. It was dry, sort of arid farming. I believe he was planting alfalfa, which is a cash crop, and he had cultivated the land for over a year and a half, and then he's finally getting the seed in, and he was growing his crop this year. And he had a number of people in this area, and like his mom said, you know, the people who go and live out in these like very remote areas where there aren't a lot of people are not typical people. I mean, they're usually people who might not want to be around other people, or who are running from something and, you know, a little off, but a lot of them would work hard for, like, to do odd jobs. So, like, I believe his name was Kurt Wasserman. There was somebody from the Montevello who would also like let him use their facilities if he needed to get a hot meal, because they had a hot plate. They would let him take a shower there, because he was just staying out and camping on this land. He'd go work at it, and then he'd go to his mom or his dad's, go back, work on the land, sort of like that. But he knew people in town. He also had 2 farmhands left over from when, I guess, his grandfather worked a farm nearby, and these 2 older men in their either late 50s or early 60s, one whose name is Don and one whose name was Jim, and we've come to know that as James Brenner. Apparently James Brenner was squatting in a trailer that was left on the property where Dylan's grain truck was, where there's this big dirt pile, and it's where his boots were found. That's where he was taking his grain truck to get it underneath. You know, he had like a big, I believe, like a big pole barn situation, so the seed wouldn't get wet. So he had left his camper. I believe it was like a couple football fields, maybe 500 yards driven. It made it as far as where he was going to protect his seed, and that's where everybody found his truck, found the grain truck. I believe that was all in that area. And so what Candace was saying, his mom, when she spoke with Duty Ron, and I highly suggest you go to Duty Ron's channel. He's a retired police officer, and he is very respectful and also very careful about what he talks about and lets the guests talk about, as we'll see in another case where somebody sort of was saying a lot, and he was like, no, you don't want to say too much when they don't know, when they don't have somebody that's a suspect locked down in custody. That's who they're prosecuting, because until that point, you don't want to let the offender know what the police know or the people, witnesses know. So Duty Ron spoke to Candace 2 or 3 times this week, and she was just reiterating, at this point, there's a lot of stuff on the interwebs that are stoking inappropriate, gossipy stuff. And I heard that about 2 weeks ago. I addressed it, and I'm not going to address it anymore, because none of it has anything to do with where is Dylan and what happened to him. At this point, now we know the FBI has been involved for a number of weeks, maybe over a month at this point. They are handling it, and they don't really need a lot of help. Now, they have some evidence, they believe, that this James Brenner, is somehow involved, and they are taking care of it. As far as Candace is concerned, there was another individual, and I don't know if it was Duty Run or another channel, was talking about a month before Dylan went missing, in the end of May 28th, I believe, was the day he went missing. About a month before that, there was a young man from California who was visiting his grandparents out in the Utah area and had been experiencing some mental stress and difficulties, not unlike some other gentlemen that we're going to be talking about later on in this episode. He seemed to have gotten paranoid. His name was Aiden Clune. He was talked about because by the time, he was missing, then his mom started getting attention, and then it got some national attention. And when I saw it on Twitter, it was about 2 weeks I had heard that it was on Twitter. And if you follow Big E or Eric, he is docket at Chasing Papers 89. He's one of my main sources on Twitter. He's always looking, scanning. He gets the first hit on a lot of missing people and crimes that have just taken place, and he also gets the documentation from a lot of the lawsuits, filings. So he is definitely a source you want to follow. He and I had on Twitter gone back and forth a bit and discussed what I did not remember at the time was this discussion of this young man who had left his truck, had taken off his shoes. They saw tracks wandering. He went into the desert, and then they could not find him. Because Dylan Rounds, his boots were found where he left his grain truck. They were both 19, both had ties to Nevada, Utah area, both, similar build, both, dark hair. It was the two places where the different men disappeared are 80 miles apart. So it's not like it happened in the very same stretch of road or anything, but just the similarities. If you know anything about cognition, if things are similar enough, your brain will put them together as one thing, and then it's hard to unpair it. You've probably had that experience, right? Where you meet two people at the same time, and even if they don't look exactly alike, you keep messing up their names because they're paired. Or you hear two songs come out on the radio, if you still listen to the radio or wherever you get your music, but you hear two popular songs at the same time, and then later on when you remember, you can't remember who the artist was. Those two songs, you keep messing up their names or artists because they're paired, because they happen so close together and we're so similar in some way. So that's what I think happened to a lot of people who are following true crime. And it was the two stories got confused and when each happened, and it seemed more like at first when the Aiden Clune, he had been traveling, it sounded like he was on some hallucinogen, took something and wandered off into the desert. Now, we covered that case about 2 weeks ago, and or maybe 3 weeks ago, but it ended up that Aiden Clune, his mom was reporting, it sounds like early schizophrenic or some mental issue, which led him to act in a delusional way, paranoid way. So that was a separate case. But then Dylan disappeared on about May 28th. And he had spoken to his mom and said, oh, I saw this guy who he didn't have any boots, and I didn't want to give him a ride because he looked like he was all bloodied up. And then, so that got confused with the mom. When he went missing, the mom was like, oh, this guy in town, Chase Venstra, this older man, he got a ride from, like he needed a ride in town or something from Dylan. Somehow it was Chase that they thought was this man. Now, for all we know, he could have seen Aiden Clune, because he said he saw a man walking in the desert without shoes and he didn't pick him up. Chase Venstra, he knew about him because Chase spent time in, now I'm going to forget the name of there was the nearest town with actual people and a working restaurant was over the border 30 miles away in Nevada, in Montello. Anyway, Chase knew the people there. In fact, he had a problem with the guy, Kurt, who was one of the first people to give, not a great tip, but you know what I mean? These people knew each other. So it does seem weird that Dylan would have told his mom there was some guy in the desert and not name him. So maybe when he was driving out, maybe he saw Aiden Clune. But regardless, at first, Dylan's mom thought, okay, he didn't give this guy a ride and he wasn't wearing shoes, and so maybe he came back for revenge, and that's why Dylan's boots were taken off and left there. So but she now says, but then she found out, no, Dylan actually did give Chase a ride, and people saw him give him a ride, and so maybe that wasn't even the same occasion, or so that really, Chase Venstra did come forward. He was checked out by the FBI. He, like probably many people in the small Lucin, Utah ghost town area, probably a lot of those people are out in a ghost town area because they're doing something and have backgrounds and just don't want to be with society. So he had an outstanding warrant. He was arrested for that, but not anything having to do with Dylan Rounds. So they did talk to both the farmhands, Jim and Don. And it turned out that Don was holding guns for Jim because Jim had a felony and wasn't supposed to have guns. He had actually done time back east for having had guns, and because he had a felony, he went to jail for like 6 months, which is horrific, and he was trying to avoid that, is what Don was saying. And what they found out was that, well, actually, what the felony was attempted murder of a co-worker back in the 70s, but I mean, so violence towards people he worked with, and we don't know what else the FBI found, but he was arrested on the gun charges, and he is sitting in jail. And Candace just wants everybody to know that is the person that the FBI is focused on. That is what the family is going with so far. And all this other discussion about their family and the parents' divorce and how the children and how Dylan was raised, a lot of that is misinformation, and I believe her because she does not have any signs of what I think is, I mean, she doesn't have any signs of deception, and she's actually very right. It has nothing to do with anything. So, if we could all raise a glass to Dylan, who turned 20 on August 1st, and raise a glass that he is returned soon to his family and we find out what happened to him, that would be great. And if you could plant Candace on her Facebook group, you can contact her. She is still sending out seeds. If you want to grow flowers, it was something Dylan did around her house. It reminds her of Dylan, and it's a sign of hope, and you know that he will return. Let's all do that. I have my Dylan sunflower right here, and here at the True Crime Grapevine, we are continuing through the month of August to dress in sunflower colors to have sunflowers in our grapevine and to keep Dylan and his parents, Justin Rounds and Candace, in our hearts. So that is our introduction, and I'll come back next with our first flight. Bye.